China has never played by those rules, and everybody knew it. Nobody disputed it. But administrations from both parties, the consensus politically in America was, go ahead, let's let China cheat. Let them keep stealing things. Because once China becomes richer and more prosperous, they'll stop doing that stuff. As soon as China's economy grows big enough, not only will they stop doing all that, but they'll become a democracy. Everyone who said that was wrong. And how they win this fight, by the way, let me tell you how they win. They go to all those American multinational corporations, many of whom are just interested in how their stock is performing from quarter to quarter, and they go to them and say, lobby your congressman, lobby your senator, lobby the White House, and convince them to drop all this. And they do it. Because these companies, what they want to do is they want access to the 1.3 billion people. A lot of them, they don't care if they're only 49% of the company in China. They don't care if they're stealing their intellectual property. By the time that matters, the CEO and the people making that decision will be long ago retired with a huge golden parachute bonus because they delivered a bunch of quarters of earnings. That's so short-sighted. They may not care about it, but those of us who work here have to. Because we do not want to live in a world where China dominates industry, not because they out-innovated us or worked harder, that's because they stole it from us. And by the way, the Chinese have figured all of this out. They have figured out exactly how to get things done in American politics. They don't lobby the government, they lobby the business sector. And then all these large corporations go marching into Capitol Hill and into the White House and scream and plead to drop all this. Of course they do. Because they're going to make a lot of money in China over the next 5 or 6 years. But a lot of these companies are one day going to be out of business. Short-term thinking. Their obligations are to their shareholders. Their shareholders are not all Americans. Our obligations are to the American people and America's future. And this is disastrous. We need a structural rebalance, not just a dollar rebalance. China intends to dominate the world in the key technologies of the 21st century: aerospace, biotech, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, 5G and telecommunication. They're going to dominate the world. You know why I know that? It isn't because I read some fancy article. It isn't because I'm on the Intel committee. It isn't because of a hearing. It isn't because of a meeting. You know how I know that? Because China says it. They have a plan called China 2025, Made in China 2025, and here's what the plan basically means. By the year 2025, China will be the dominant country in the world in these 10 to 12 industries, which happen to be the 10 or 12 industries that are going to determine the fate of the 21st century. If you are going to become the dominant power in the world in these key technologies, you have every right to do so, but not by breaking the rules. And that's how they're doing it. How does China intend? What are they doing in order to dominate the world in 2025? To their credit, they invest a lot of money in research and in development. They also invest a lot of money in stealing whatever we've already done. So think about it. America invests taxpayer money. We innovate something. We innovate it. And after we spend all of your money innovating these things, they take it from us and steal it. It costs them nothing to start out exactly where we are after years and years of work. So think about that for a moment. That is an enormous competitive advantage. They have free research funded by the American taxpayer. They steal it. What else do? They do other things. How do they steal it, you may ask? One of the ways they steal it is through telecommunications. They are trying to embed themselves in our telecommunications system. And I'm telling you guys, we are going to wake up one day and realize that in our own country, embedded in our telecommunications systems, in our cable, in our routers, in our internet, are a bunch of component pieces that not only leave vulnerable our Department of Defense, but our business community. To what? To stealing corporate secrets and commercial secrets that allow them to take the research America has done and use it as their starting point free of cost. Do we not understand where we are headed? You have a country that is actively saying, we are going to displace you. We are going to be the most powerful country in the world, and we are going to do that at your expense. And we're out here talking about all kinds of other crazy stuff, or political reporters cover this through the political lens. This is not a game. You know why China wins these negotiations? Because they don't play these games. They know what this is about. They have a 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 50-year plan. We can't even think 48 hours ahead. And everything here is about a political thing. It's not a game, guys. Whether you want to believe it or not, every single one of us was elected. We've participated in politics. But I think most of us, if not all of us here, do not want to live in a world in 10, 15, 20 years on our watch where some other country now dominates the world at our expense. We now work for them. We now are beholden to them for everything from medicines to technologies. And we were here when it happened. And we didn't do anything about it. This also, by the way, is not just about business. You turn on some of the networks that cover the stock market, and they cover this like a casino. Oh, the trade thing is doing better today, so the stocks are up, or the stocks are down. This is not just, forget about that for a moment. You can make all the profits you want over the next 3 to 6 months. I promise you, and then if this continues, in 10 or 15 years, you won't be watching the U.S. stock market, you'll be watching the Chinese markets. And they will be determining whether our companies survive. It'll be us. It'll be us on the outside looking in. And then Americans are going to wonder, why do we no longer invent great things? Why do we now have to do whatever China wants in the world in order to get the medicines we need? This is headed to a dramatic imbalance. And the imbalance used to be they made cheap things and sent it back to us so we had lower prices. That's what's happened for the last 30 years. They made cheaper T-shirts, they assembled the phones cheaper, and they shipped it back to the United States, leading to lower prices. That's not the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance we're headed to is they control state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. They control the state-of-the-art quantum computing, which means that nothing can be encrypted anymore, which means there are no such things as secure cars left. The President of the United States one day will not be able to talk to his national security officials anywhere in the world without the Chinese hearing it, because no matter what encryption you put in, they'll break it with a quantum computer. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance I'm talking about is one day we'll have a dispute with China on something on national security somewhere in the world, and they will threaten to cut off our supply of biomedicines. In essence, threaten the lives of Americans not getting medicine unless we cave to their desires. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance I'm talking about is one where they dominate aerospace, where they are the nation that controls satellites and satellite communication. They are the nation that controls 5G. We're headed towards autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles will depend on 5G technology. And China will dominate the world in 5G, and we will depend on it. So we're going to build a fleet of autonomous trucks and autonomous cars, and none of them will work if the Chinese decide to shut it down because they dominate that field. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. It is time to wake up to this threat because we have two ways forward. There can be a balanced relationship between two great powers, leading to a world that is stable and secure and prosperity, or we can have an imbalanced world in which a rising power in China does so at the direct expense of a falling status quo power in the United States, and that instability will lead to conflict and a way of life for Americans that we will find unacceptable. And then it will be too late. And then we will have to explain, maybe to our children and most certainly to our grandchildren, why the America we grew up in led the world and all the great innovations and all the great ideas and provided prosperity to millions of people here and around the world, and the America they get to grow up in is a second-tier power, while China dominates everything that matters. And if you think that that's just a way, that's not a big deal, one of the reasons why democracy has spread across the planet is because the world's most powerful country was a democracy. If the world's most powerful country is a dictatorship, a country that has no respect for privacy, a country that has no respect for free speech, a country that has no respect for religious liberty of its own people, a country that has no regard for human rights anywhere in the world, if that's the most dominant nation on earth, what do you think the world's going to look like in 20 or 30 years? It's not going to be a better place.